Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, we spend our lives searching for change. Change in our hearts, our situations, our pain, our unanswered dua. We look for solutions in people, in plans, in strength we think we do not have. But sometimes the greatest turning point in our destiny comes not from standing tall, but from going down, from placing our forehead on the ground, from a moment of complete surrender, from one sincere sajda. When the world fades, the heart speaks and Allah listens. Today, I want to remind myself and you that one prostration done with a broken heart and full trust in Allah can rewrite a destiny, lift a burden, and open doors we never imagined. Because when you fall into sajda for Allah, you are never truly falling. You are rising. Sujood is the most intimate position a believer ever takes before Allah. It is the moment when the distance between the servant and the Creator disappears, not because Allah comes closer in space, but because the heart finally arrives where it was always meant to be. When the forehead touches the ground, pride is silenced, control is released, and the soul remembers its true position. The Prophet taught us that the closest the servant is to Allah is while in prostration. And this closeness is not symbolic or poetic. It is real, lived, and deeply transformative for the one who understands it. In sujood, every false sense of strength collapses. Titles, achievements, failures, and fears are all left behind. The body lowers itself completely, but the soul rises higher than it ever could while standing. This position strips the believer of illusions and replaces them with truth. You are weak and Allah is strong. You are needy and Allah is rich. You are temporary and Allah is eternal. Nothing teaches Tawheed more powerfully than sujood, because it is lived belief, not just spoken words. Sujood is where dua changes its tone. Outside of it, we often ask with formality or habit, but in prostration, the heart speaks before the tongue does. Tears fall without being invited. Words break apart, and sometimes there are no words at all, only a heart pressed against the earth, calling upon the one who created it. Allah does not require eloquence in sujood. He responds to sincerity. A single whisper from a sincere heart in sujood can outweigh 1,000 loud supplications made without presence. This closeness is not reserved for the righteous elite or the spiritually advanced. It is open to anyone who bows sincerely, no matter how heavy their sins or how distant they feel. Sujood does not ask where you have been. It asks where you are now. Every time a believer goes into prostration, they are given a fresh chance to return, to reset, to be seen by Allah, not as they see themselves, but as a servant trying again. The ground becomes a witness to repentance, humility, and hope. In sujood, time feels different. A few seconds can carry the weight of a lifetime. Worries that felt unbearable while standing suddenly feel smaller when placed before Allah. This is not because problems vanish, but because the heart remembers who is in control of them. Sujood teaches the believer that closeness to Allah is not found in escaping hardship, but in submitting within it. When the forehead is on the ground, the heart is reminded that nothing in this world has the right to be feared more than Allah or trusted more than Him. Even the angels recognize the power of this position. Iblis was expelled not because he disbelieved in Allah's existence, but because he refused to prostrate. His arrogance prevented him from lowering himself, while the believer's honor is found in doing exactly that. Every sujood is a silent declaration that we will not repeat that mistake, that we choose humility over ego, obedience over pride, closeness over distance. Sujood also carries a healing that words cannot provide. There are pains that cannot be explained to people and wounds that cannot be articulated, but Allah hears them clearly in prostration. The heart offloads its burdens onto the ground, and Allah lifts what no human could carry. Many answers come not as immediate solutions, but as peace placed into the heart, a calm that makes waiting possible and trusting easier. When a believer understands sujood, it no longer becomes just a pillar of prayer. It becomes a refuge. It becomes the place they run to when the world feels heavy, when faith feels fragile, when hope feels distant. Each time the forehead touches the ground, the soul is reminded that it belongs to Allah, returns to Allah, and finds its strength only through Allah. Destiny is often imagined as something fixed and distant, written beyond our reach, but Islam teaches us that destiny interacts with the state of the heart. When the heart resists, argues, and clings to control, the path feels heavy and confusing. When the heart surrenders sincerely to Allah, something shifts, not always immediately in circumstances, but deeply and decisively in direction. Surrender is not weakness, it is alignment. It is the moment the heart stops fighting what Allah is doing and starts trusting why He is doing it. A surrendered heart accepts that Allah knows what it does not. It releases the exhausting need to understand every delay, every loss, every unanswered dua. This release creates space for divine help to enter. Many people ask Allah for change while holding tightly to fear, expectations, and conditions. But when the heart truly lets go, when it says, Ya Allah, I trust you, even if this unfolds differently than I imagine, destiny begins to move in ways that logic cannot predict. The Quran repeatedly connects guidance and outcomes to the state of the heart. When the heart humbles itself, Allah opens paths that were never visible before. Surrender softens the inner resistance that blocks blessings. It is not passive acceptance, it is active trust. The believer still works, strives, and makes dua, but without the desperation that comes from thinking everything depends on their effort alone. That inner shift changes how Allah's decree meets the servant. Many moments in the lives of the prophets show that destiny turned not at the peak of strength, but at the point of surrender. When certainty replaced fear, when trust replaced panic, when obedience replaced hesitation, Allah's help arrived in ways no one could have planned. The external situation may have looked the same, but the internal surrender unlocked a different ending. This is because Allah responds not only to actions, but to the state of reliance behind them. A heart that surrenders stops negotiating with Allah. It no longer says, I will obey if you give, or I will trust if you explain. It obeys because Allah is worthy of obedience. It trusts because Allah is worthy of trust. This sincerity transforms trials from punishments into pathways. What once felt like a dead end becomes a redirection. What felt like rejection becomes protection. The believer may not immediately see the wisdom, but his heart feels anchored rather than lost. Surrender also frees the believer from constant anxiety about outcomes. When the heart believes that Allah is Al-Hakim, every result carries meaning, even if it carries pain. This does not remove sadness or grief, but it removes despair. The heart learns that losing something does not mean losing Allah's care, and gaining something does not mean earning Allah's favor. This balance stabilizes the soul and allows it to move forward with calm resilience. When the heart surrenders, dua changes. It becomes less about demanding specific outcomes and more about asking for what brings closeness to Allah. The believer still asks for relief, healing, and success, but with the understanding that Allah's choice is better than their own. This trust invites a special form of response, where Allah may give exactly what was asked for, delay it, replace it, or transform the heart so that it no longer needs what it once begged for. Destiny shifts because the surrendered heart aligns itself with divine will rather than fighting it. Resistance creates friction, surrender creates flow. The believer begins to notice doors opening after they stop forcing them, peace arriving after they stop chasing certainty, clarity appearing after they stop demanding control. These shifts may look subtle, but they are powerful. A heart at peace makes better decisions, responds with patience, and recognizes opportunities it once overlooked. True surrender is tested in moments when nothing makes sense. It is easy to say, I trust Allah when life is smooth, but surrender reveals itself when expectations collapse. In those moments, the heart either hardens or softens. A softened heart turns toward Allah with humility, admitting need and weakness. That admission itself becomes a turning point, because Allah loves to respond to hearts that come to Him empty homes, and reliant. When the heart fully surrenders, it no longer measures success by speed or ease, but by closeness to Allah. That shift in measurement changes everything the believer experiences, because destiny is no longer seen as something to fear, but as something unfolding under the care of the most merciful. A single sincere sajda can outweigh years of struggle, because Allah does not measure actions the way people do. We measure by quantity, visibility, and consistency, while Allah measures by sincerity, humility, and truthfulness of the heart. A person may spend years struggling, making mistakes, falling short, and feeling distant, yet in one moment of genuine return, one sajda done with complete honesty can carry more weight than countless actions performed without presence. That moment becomes heavy because the heart is finally aligned with its purpose. Years of struggle often exhaust the soul. They leave behind confusion, regret, and a sense of failure. Many believers carry the pain of thinking they are too late, too broken, or too inconsistent to matter. But sajda has a way of rewriting that narrative. When the forehead touches the ground with sincerity, the past no longer defines the moment. Allah looks at the servant as they are now, not as they were before. That one sajda becomes a declaration that despite everything, the servant has not given up on Allah. Sincerity is what gives sajda its weight. A routine prostration may fulfill an obligation, but a sincere one transforms the heart. It is the sajda where excuses fall away, where the servant stops pretending to be strong, patient, or understanding. It is the sajda where the heart finally admits its need and weakness. Allah loves this state because it reflects truth. There is no performance in it, no image to protect, no expectation from anyone except Allah. Many people spend years trying to fix themselves before turning fully to Allah. They delay repentance, waiting to become better, stronger, or more consistent. Sajda interrupts that delay. It allows the servant to come exactly as they are, one sincere. Sajda does not require a clean past or a perfect present. It requires honesty. That honesty can unlock mercy that years of half-hearted effort never reached. The companions understood this reality deeply. They knew that moments of sincere return could erase what seemed unerasable. Islam teaches that Allah's mercy can outweigh a lifetime of mistakes, and sajda is often where that mercy is accessed. The believer places their most honored part, the face, on the lowest place, the ground, and in doing so, strips away arrogance, entitlement, and despair. That act alone carries a meaning far greater than its physical movement. Struggle often hardens the heart if it is not accompanied by humility. Years of hardship can create frustration, bitterness, or distance if the heart feels unheard. But a sincere sajda softens what struggle hardens. It reconnects the believer to the source of relief rather than the relief itself. In that moment, the servant is no longer arguing with destiny or resenting delay. They are simply present before Allah, asking without conditions. A single sajda can outweigh years of struggle because it can mark a turning point. It can be the moment the believer stops running and starts returning. It can be the moment they forgive themselves because they trust Allah's forgiveness more than their own judgment. That internal shift changes everything that follows. Actions become lighter, patience becomes possible, and hope returns, not because circumstances have changed, but because the heart has. Allah responds to moments, not timelines. He is not bound by the years a person spends struggling, failing, or drifting. He is moved by the moment a heart truly turns to Him. That is why one sajda at the right time, with the right sincerity, can open doors that years of effort could not. It is not about earning Allah's mercy, but about finally placing oneself where that mercy can reach. This is why the believer should never underestimate a single act done with full presence. A sajda offered at the depth of the night, in the quiet of pain, or in the middle of confusion may carry more weight than visible achievements. In that moment, the servant is not trying to prove anything. They are simply asking to be held, guided, forgiven, and seen by Allah. What breaks you before Allah is not meant to destroy you. It is meant to strip you of illusions that kept you distant from Him. The moments that leave you exhausted, confused, and empty are often the moments when Allah is removing what you relied on more than Him. Comfort, control, certainty, and self-sufficiency quietly shape the ego, and Allah, in His mercy, sometimes takes them away so the heart can finally turn fully toward Him. Brokenness before Allah is different from brokenness before people. Before people, brokenness feels humiliating, exposing, and unsafe. Before Allah, it is honored. Allah does not turn away from a broken heart. He draws closer to it. When a believer comes to Him without defenses, without pretending to be okay, without hiding their weakness, that vulnerability becomes a form of worship. It is an unspoken acknowledgement that only Allah can carry what the heart no longer can. Many believers resist breaking because they fear it means failure. They think strength lies in holding everything together, staying composed, and managing pain alone. But spiritual strength is found in knowing when to fall apart before the one who can put you back together. Allah does not heal the parts of the heart that are hidden behind pride. Healing begins where it hones. Thank you begins. And honesty often emerges only after the heart is broken open. There are pains that force the believer into sujood, not out of routine, but out of necessity. In those moments, dua is not polished, words are not measured, and tears come without permission. That raw state is not a setback, it is a doorway. Allah listens differently to a heart that has been humbled by life, not because Allah changes, but because the heart has finally become receptive to what Allah has always been offering. Breaking before Allah also corrects the way the believer understands hardship. Pain stops being seen as abandonment and starts being recognized as attention. Allah does not break hearts to enjoy their suffering, but to rescue them from attachments that would have ruined them. Some doors are closed because walking through them would have led further away from Allah. Some losses occur because keeping them would have hardened the heart beyond repair. Healing through Allah does not always mean the pain disappears. Sometimes it means the pain no longer controls the heart. The memory may remain, the scar may exist, but the weight changes. The believer can breathe again, trust again, and hope again. This healing is subtle but profound. It allows the believer to carry their past without being crushed by it, to remember without being consumed. When Allah heals, He does so in ways that transform the believer's relationship with Him. After breaking, prayer feels different. Quran speaks differently. Sajda becomes longer, not out of obligation, but because the heart has learned where safety truly lies. The believer no longer turns to Allah only in crisis, but remains close out of recognition. They have tasted what it means to be held by divine mercy. Breaking also removes judgment from the heart. A believer who has been broken and healed by Allah becomes gentler with others. They stop assuming, condemning, and dismissing pain they do not understand. Their own experience teaches them that everyone is fighting something unseen. This softness is not weakness. It is wisdom born from survival through Allah's care. Allah does not waste pain. Every tear shed in sincerity, every moment of helplessness, every silent plea is preserved and honored. What breaks you before Allah becomes the very thing that brings you closer to Him. It becomes the reason your dua carries depth, your worship carries humility, and your trust carries sincerity. The believer emerges changed, not because the world became kinder, but because the heart became anchored. Those who have been healed by Allah know that the breaking was not the end. It was the beginning of clarity, reliance, and nearness. The heart that once demanded answers learns to accept wisdom. The soul that once resisted surrender learns to rest in it. What once felt unbearable becomes the very means through which the believer learns that Allah was always near, always watching, and always ready to heal.